Now, more stories, insights, and analysis of Illinois policy and politics. This is Illinois Rising, presented by the Illinois Policy Institute. Once again, your host, AM 560's Dan Proft.
Dan Proft back with Michael Lucci, Vice President of Policy for the Illinois Policy Institute. And Michael talked about a number of the stories that dominated the week. One of them is the seeming path towards some agreement between Governor Rauner and Senate President Cullerton on a baby step along the road to rethinking our public sector pension systems and trying to restructure them so that they are financeable long term. Governor Rauner essentially adopting what Senator Cullerton had proposed previously, prior to the state Supreme Court decision and validating the law that was signed by Quinn in 2012. Where does that stand exactly? And even if they were somehow to continue this détente, Cullerton and Madigan, and enlist Mike Madigan on top of it so you could actually move this through the General Assembly to have Governor Rauner sign it, what would the impact be?
Well, as you mentioned, there seems to be an agreement, but we're also seeing Senate President Cullerton waver a bit because the governor said, put the bill on my desk and I'll sign it. And what this would basically do is save about $1 billion per year, which is a great number, but really that is a partial pension reform. So even if Madigan comes on, they put it onto the governor's desk, he signs it, you get about $1 billion in savings per year. Now, that's on a state budget where 25 cents out of every dollar goes to pensions. What you would see is that you would hopefully see a step towards constitutional pension reform, but we still have to look at an all-of-the-above approach to pensions because they are eating our service dollars, they're eating our tax dollars, they're driving budget deficits that we've been having for over a decade now. So this would be a solid first step, but we need to keep going forward. We need to look at even constitutional changes to make sure that the state can control its pension costs and to make sure that these pension deals are not a suicide pact where the state has to raise taxes so much that, we just continue this outflow of people leaving the state of Illinois.
Well, so this is it. I mean, you can't look at this in a vacuum, right? You've got the negotiation between the governor and AFSCME, representing 36,000 state workers. That's ongoing. And AFSCME doesn't want to give in at all in terms of their compensation level, including their pension and health care benefits. That's number one. So just kind of against the backdrop of that negotiation, combined with Leslie Munger, the state's comptroller, saying this week that if we just look at a revenue solution to deal with the $6 billion in unpaid bills that we have, we'd have to double the state income tax rate. If we're just going to do revenue and not do structural reform, to really put an exclamation point on the need for structural reform. So the AFSCME contract that's pending, $6 billion in outstanding bills, and you're talking about $1 billion in savings. I mean, where do we have to really go if we're going to have a serious conversation about a viable pension, five viable pension systems?
Well, you have to have a change so that on a going forward basis, you can actually change the deal on pensions. And that would actually necessitate a constitutional amendment so that you could say, you know what, either we're going to change the pensions that have already been earned, or if you're not going to say that, say, all right, going forward, we have to have a new deal. But to reflect on what Comptroller Munger was saying, I think it's important that people realize we're in uncharted territory as a state as far as where taxes are. Illinois, after we did the income tax hike in 2011, we very likely passed Wisconsin to become the most heavily taxed state in the Midwest. Illinois has never been there before, actually. We've always had bad taxes, but there was always a Wisconsin or Minnesota who had higher overall state plus local tax burden. If we did this doubling of the income tax that the comptroller said would need to be done to plug this budget gap, you're talking about Illinois being a top 3 taxing state in the country, possibly top 2, if that's what happened. And we've already clearly heard Speaker Madigan says, we should at least go to 5% again. And by 5%, that is, we are the biggest tax state in the Midwest. And I'm sure that they would put votes on to go higher than 5% also.
And right now, according to the Tax Foundation, we're 5th as we stand here today. We're 5th in the nation in terms of total state and local tax burden. So there's another option, or at least something else that needs to be included in the discussion, isn't there? the idea that you could have a state worker strike and/or, whether that would come to pass or not, substantial layoffs. If you're not going to give on the cost center that you drive as state employees in terms of salary plus benefits, then maybe we just need to have substantially fewer state employees.
And this is something where you could likely outsource a lot of these services. You could get these contracts done by private contractors who don't have a pension benefit tied to them. At this point, as we were mentioning earlier, you really need to look at all of the above solutions. This is a massive problem. It's been unaddressed ever by the Democratic supermajorities who have controlled the state. They passed a bill in 2013 that was thrown out by the courts. But this is something that they should have been passing legislation on and fixing 15 years ago, or at least 10 years ago, because this problem is now so big that none of the solutions are going to make people happy. But you have to, at some point, protect your tax base. You have to, at some point, say, you know what? We're taxing more than anyone around us. This is completely out of control. There's no end in sight in terms of where the taxes are going to have to go. We need to put in position a pension system that is sustainable, that protects workers and protects taxpayers. And we might also have to outsource some of our work so that we don't have a massive pension burden attached to everything that the state does.